Hello and welcome to the ISEP Brazil Pre-Departure Orientation. My name is Kira Hawkinson and I'm the Student Services Officer for the Americas and Southern Europe at ISEP. All right, here's our agenda for today: culture and daily life, academic matters, health and safety, before you go, and keeping in touch with ISEP. All right, to get started, life in Brazil. So Brazilians are very tactile. Touch on the arm, pat on the back is common in normal conversation. So just something to be aware of. Might be a little bit more touchy-feely depending on the country that you're coming from. Obviously, within reason, if there's someone who's getting a little too close and you don't appreciate it, always let them know. But something just to be aware of that Brazilians culturally are a little bit more touchy-feely. Compared to their neighbors, Brazilians communicate with a slightly blunter cultural style, so a lot of emphasis on non-verbal gestures to enhance their point. Brazilians tend to see time as a sequence of events as opposed to hours and minutes. The OK sign used in North America, thumb and index finger joined in an O, closely resembles an offensive Brazilian hand gesture. So in Brazil, so just something to be aware of. Don't make that sign when you're in Brazil. But the thumbs up sign is used to indicate approval. So pretty common throughout the world, depending on where you're coming from. Okay, so daily life in Brazil. Latin Americans, as I mentioned before, with Brazilians tend to get close to communicate maybe a little bit more than what you're used to, again, depending on the country that you're coming from. Family usually plays a very important role and is a center around which many activities revolve. Families are extremely close, and it's not unusual for children to live with their parents until they get married. Latin American culture doesn't always stress punctuality, kind of what I mentioned in the last slide, in the same way that other cultures may, especially if you're coming from the United States. Might be a little bit more laid back than what you're used to, so something to just keep in mind. But of course, be on time and punctual for classes and any professional situations. All right, so housing, as you've seen probably already in your acceptance package, there's two different housing options: independent, so you're responsible for finding your own housing and you'll receive a stipend, or student house, a shared apartment with other Brazilian and international students. If you have any questions about housing, you can reach out to me or your host coordinator. Okay, meals. Students receive a monthly meal stipend. There's a variety of supermarkets. Carrefour is popular and widespread. Forgive me if my Portuguese is not perfect. I do not speak Portuguese. Lunch is an important time for socializing. Dinner is often a little bit more of a later meal. Many Brazilians have an early snack in the early afternoon, and then they have an important family meal, not usually an on-the-go or fast food type meal for dinner. And most meals in Brazil will consist of beans, rice, meat, fish, and salad or vegetables. So, to keep going with meals, rice, beans, and manioc are staples in Brazilian cuisine. Feijoada, again, apologize if it's not perfect. National dish, pork and black bean stew. Brazilians rarely eat with their hands. They always use a knife and fork. So if a fork and knife cannot be used, a napkin should be. So if you're used to eating pizza or bread or something like that with your hands, maybe just be aware to not eat with your hands and use a napkin or a knife and fork or something like that. And please wait to eat until everyone has been served. No smoking at the table while others are eating, and no using a toothpick in front of others. Just overall, being well-mannered when you're having a meal in Brazil. All right, so technology in Brazil. There's free Wi-Fi available at bars, cafes, restaurants, and hotels. They may have kind of a minimal price that you have to pay or a card you have to use the Wi-Fi, so something to keep in mind. Plug types are C and N, so if you don't have that, just be sure to bring converters or adapters with you for your program. Vivo, TIM, and Claro are most popular cell phone service providers. So make sure if you're going to use a SIM card through one of these providers that you get your phone unlocked first by your own provider, because if you don't get your phone unlocked, then you the SIM card or your phone will not accept the local SIM card. So just be sure to do that before you leave for Brazil. Other options could be that you rent a cell phone while you're there, or you could use a burner phone, for example, one of those smaller phones. You just add minutes onto it, or you could talk to your provider about any international plans that they offer. Some of the most popular messaging apps are WhatsApp and Telegram. Definitely recommend downloading these apps before you go. People prefer calling using WhatsApp, or they use voice messages or something like that within WhatsApp or Telegram. Definitely download those apps before you go, because those are very widely used. Okay, finances in Brazil. They use the Brazilian real. Credit and debit cards are widely used, but it's always good to have cash. For smaller stores, cafes, markets, and places outside of the city, they might not accept cards. Just a reminder, make sure to let your bank know that you'll be traveling to Brazil. You don't want to be in a situation where you forget to tell your bank and they freeze your account because they didn't know that you were traveling to Brazil. So a good idea to let your bank know. ATMs are widespread, and an app that you can use for splitting costs between groups is called Splitwise. Another thing to keep in mind, you might want to check with your bank as far as international charges that they have for using your card in other countries. Another thing to keep in mind is that some cards might not be as readily used or widely used, excuse me, in Brazil. For example, Visa and MasterCard will probably be accepted, but cards like maybe American Express might not be as widely used. So something to just keep in mind and check on before you go. All right, transportation in Brazil. Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo have metros. Buses and minivans are the most common public transportation. In more rural areas, moto taxis are the only form of public transportation, so that's something you may want to keep in mind. Buses are used for intercity transport as well as travel between cities. Transportation within Brazil is pretty cheap, so aside from planes, and only take licensed taxis. It's best to call for one or wait at a specific designated taxi stop. I'm sure they'll talk about this a little bit more in orientation, or you can ask about it with your host coordinators, just to keep in mind that you're not using a taxi that is not a legitimate one. They should be able to help you with where to look for what types of taxi services to use while you're there. Uber and Didi are options for ride shares, but they're not always widespread. They're probably available in bigger cities like Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, but for smaller towns, I don't know if the rideshare options will be as readily available. All right, sports and leisure. Football or soccer, foot volley, volleyball, swimming, and capoeira are popular sports. Football is the national sport, and Brazilians are passionate fans, as are many people throughout Latin America. Football is a very popular sport. Definitely recommend attending a football match if you're able to. Outdoor activities are also very popular. Brazil has a lot of outdoor amenities to offer, such as beaches, waterfalls, and the Amazon rainforest. If you have a chance, I highly recommend that you go to one of these places and experience the natural wonders that Brazil has to offer. All right, so I'm not going to go over every single one, but here are the major holidays and vacation periods throughout the year in Brazil. You can always pause the video and kind of make note of these different days. All right. Culture shock. So culture shock is a real thing that can happen at any time during your study abroad program. Probably a little bit more common at the beginning, but it can happen anytime throughout your program. You're obviously going to be in a new country, new culture, and it may be a little bit daunting at first, and again, kind of a shock, experiencing, things that you're not used to. You just have to be patient with yourself and know that this is a very common occurrence, that you may have feelings like loneliness, or you might be scared, or you may be overwhelmed. just know that these are very normal feelings, and a lot of students go through this when they study abroad in another country and they're just getting accustomed to the different ways of life and culture that are there. Obviously, if it gets to a point where it is too overwhelming, and if you're having issues, you can always reach out to me or your host university coordinator to let us know if you need any suggestions for how to help you out or how to adjust a little bit better to life in Brazil. All right, so other tips for while you're there, I would do your best to make local friends. If you make local friends, it's a great way to practice the language. That's the best way to get better at a language, is just to use it, even if you're not fully confident in yet, or you may not know every word or how to say something. That is the best way to learn the language, is just to try, and they will definitely appreciate you trying and will help you out if there's something that you don't know how to say, or a phrase or a word or something like that. It can help you out, and that's how you learn more vocabulary. All right, so take advantage of the resources for international students. You can likely join sports teams, clubs, different organizations on campus. So if they don't go over an orientation, be sure to ask your host coordinator if there's something specific that you want to be a part of, like a football team or something like that. Set goals for yourself, or set a bucket list. You want to go to the Amazon rainforest, or you want to go to Iguazu Falls, or you want to go dancing in a club somewhere in Sao Paulo. It's good to have kind of a list of goals or a bucket list that you want to achieve while you are there in Brazil. You can keep a blog or a journal. This is a great way for your family to stay updated on what you're doing during your semester, and it's a good thing to reflect on after you return back from your study abroad program, and all the, reminisce on all the wonderful times that you had. And believe in your own ability to solve problems and be proactive. This is definitely can be a scary thing, being in a new country for a long period of time, but just know that you did this to be independent, to learn more, to learn about another culture and experience a new way of life. You can do it. But again, if you have any concerns or something, you're not feeling very great, or feeling a bit overwhelmed, you can always, again, reach out to us or reach out to your host coordinator on site. All right, so here's some reflections from past ISEP students. I'm not going to read over them, but you can pause the video at this point and just kind of read over some of their reflections about their experience. All right, on to academics. Okay, so the higher education system in Brazil, teaching and grading styles are different than probably what you're used to. Individual learning is emphasized. Important to attend lectures and take comprehensive notes. In general, any program you go to or any institution you attend, it's always good to attend the lectures and take comprehensive notes, but specifically in Brazil, it is very important that you do that. Local students generally enroll in a set program of study, so they have kind of a plan for exactly which classes they're going to take which semester and which year of their program. Undergraduate degree programs last from 2 to 6 years, leading to a bachelor, non-teaching degree, licenciado, teaching, or a professional title, licenciado médico or contador, etc. Graduate programs consist of a 2-year program leading to a mestre degree and a 4-year program leading to a doutor or doctorate degree. Academic school year is March to November. Some institutions, especially those that have larger enrollments and are located in urban areas, offer 3 shifts or classes each day, so a morning, afternoon, and an evening shift. Okay, academics, exams, papers, and homework. Many courses will have an important final exam, which will determine a large portion of your grade. So again, please be sure that you're going to all lectures and taking very good notes and meeting with your professor if necessary. Homework isn't common, but you're expected to keep up with your classes and the subject matter. Traditionally, students used to write down everything and that the professor said and memorize it for the final exam, although that is starting to change. But again, please be sure that you're attending lectures and writing down good notes and asking your professor any questions. All right, grading system. There's no set national standard for grades and gradings. Like I said, your grade will depend very heavily on the final exam. Credit system, students take about 8 to 9 classes per semester, 16 to 20 hours in each class each week. Credit transfer policies vary at every home institution, so it's a good idea to find out before you leave. I'm sure you have already, but if you haven't, meet with your academic advisor and kind of go over the courses that you're planning on taking while abroad, and they'll be able to tell you if those courses will transfer back to your major or just your home institution in general. Like I said, go to class, save all course materials, check in with your host coordinator if you're having any issues with classes. They don't know if you're having an issue, so please reach out to them if you're, not able to get a hold of your professor or something like that. All right, important, in order for you to receive grades and credits for the courses you complete, you must follow the explicit directions or instructions of your host ISEP coordinator. So be sure that you are looking over any materials that are given to you by your host coordinator and emails that are sent to you from them. Okay, so registration, there's a trial period or an add drop period, as some of you may know, or are used to determine which courses you want to formally register for and set a final schedule. Courses may need to be adjusted, so just keep an open mind. Once your course lists are final, contact your academic advisor at your home institution to make sure you will be able to earn credit for the semester and are enrolled in the minimum number of credits required by your home university. It may be different depending on which is your home university, so you just want to be sure to check in with them once your courses are set and are fully registered and you've already been through kind of the add drop period. Good idea to check in with your academic advisor and make sure that everything looks good on their end. Once you've confirmed your schedule, be sure to check that you are on professors' class lists and that you're officially registered with the university. You can always check in with the host coordinator. All right, interaction with professors. Classes require a certain amount of independence. However, students rely heavily on the professor. Sometimes the professor is the only resource available. So if they have office hours or anything like that, good idea to take them up on it. Reach out to professors and classmates if you need any help, and you can always contact your ISEP coordinator or academic advisor if you need help contacting a professor. Health and safety. So critical health and safety resources. You can review the health and safety information that's available in your acceptance package, or you can go to the ISEP website. We have a whole page on health and safety. The emergency line is right here. So please call that number if you're in an emergency. Please don't call this number if it's not an emergency. You can always reach out to me or the host coordinator just for general questions. But if it is a health and safety emergency situation, you can reach out to, or you can call that number. Review your insurance coverage on the summary of benefits page. Contact your country's embassy in Brazil. It's always a good idea to be aware of the different embassies that are available in Brazil in case you were in an emergency situation and you needed to go to an embassy or a consulate, for example. Provide your local contact information in the ISEP portal. There's a place where you can put your on-site contact information. So please put that, because it's always nice for us to have to contact you in case of an emergency. Please be in contact with your host institution as well as far as health and safety matters. I'm sure they will go over it in orientation on site, but if you have any questions about on-site health and safety on the campus, you can be in contact with your host university coordinator. Right, health and safety in Brazil. Familiarize yourself with the emergency contact information in your ISEP dashboard. For emergencies in Brazil, here are the numbers: 190 for police, 192 for ambulance, and 193 for fire. Again, here's where you can add emergency contacts in your ISEP account. Health insurance. So all ISEP students are required to enroll in ISEP health insurance. So for the student insurance is provided by two different companies, Sirius America is the health insurance, and On Call International is the travel assistance, evacuation, and repatriation insurance. It's a good idea to print out and carry your health insurance ID cards with you in your wallet. That's available in your ISIP account under the ISIP insurance tab. And you also have a letter there as well about your coverage. So it's a good idea to, again, print that information and have with you when you're traveling. For a non-emergency medical problem, you should first visit University Health Services or a local clinic. If you need any help finding one, you can talk to your host coordinator and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. For medical emergencies, it's recommended that you visit a local hospital. Again, be in contact with your host coordinator if you have any questions on how to go to a local hospital. Typically, you'll be required to pay for your medical expenses up front, and then you save all your information in the receipt and you submit a claim to request a reimbursement. So please save all medical documentation and receipts. The ISIP student insurance will cover any medical costs above the $50 deductible. And if you have any questions about ISIP health insurance, you can reach out to insurance@isip.org. All right, personal safety. Use common sense to stay safe. Pay attention to security warnings and on-site orientation briefings. So anything that they tell you specifically in your orientation, please heed that advice and follow it very carefully. Travel in pairs or small groups rather than alone, especially at night. Another good idea is maybe to talk to your host coordinator about certain areas within the city to avoid, especially at night. If you sense a potentially dangerous situation, remove yourself, and if you're with friends, and remove them as well. Maybe go to a more safe area. Blend in, follow the local social norms. Mind your pockets, use traveler wallets or safes, or money belt, I think as they're called. Those are great to use just to, when you're carrying, money or something or important things around with you, to have it. You can go around your waist and you can put your shirt over it. Avoid displays of wealth, maybe a brand new iPhone or different things like that. I believe petty theft can be common in Brazil, so just be aware of that. Be watchful and mindful of those kind of things. Practice safe and responsible use of alcohol if you choose to drink. Always, be smart. And also, take care of anyone else on the program or your friends as well if you sense a potentially dangerous situation involving alcohol. Learn from your host ISIP coordinator and local students the best, safest way to travel in Sao Paulo, what's the best form of transportation, and like I said, avoid any bad neighborhoods or unsafe parts of the country or the city in itself. Please do not attend protests, rallies, or strikes. It is just not a good idea. Even if it starts out peaceful or is intended to be peaceful, it could escalate at any point. So we please ask that the students do not participate in these types of events. All right, note before you go. So packing, clothing needs will vary depending on your preferences. Temperature is relatively stable year round, but it's always a good idea to kind of check the averages of the temperatures for the time that you will be in Brazil and pack accordingly. And if you have specific toiletry needs or a specific shampoo, conditioner, face wash, something like that, that that you can't get in Brazil, please be sure to bring enough with you for your entire stay, as it probably will be hard to get it there. Medications, again, bring enough with you for your entire stay. Recommendation is to bring your medication with you in your carry-on and not your checked luggage, just in the case that your luggage is lost. You don't want to be without your medication. Something else to keep in mind with medications, if you were in a situation where you needed to get more while on site, please bring your all the information about your medication, your prescription, maybe the generic name for the medication that you use, because it might not be the same name in Brazil. Please bring all that documentation with you, just in the case that you needed to fill out a prescription while on site. Electrical needs, like I mentioned earlier, Please be sure to bring any converters or adapters if you don't have the correct outlet. Paper copies of important documents in your carry-on. So it's always good to have a copy of, your ISEP insurance, maybe your acceptance letter, maybe a few copies of your passport. That's always a good idea to have a few color copies of that as well. Check your pre-departure information in your ISEP portal. Make sure you're following any emails from your host institution as far as things that you need to bring or be aware of, or timelines or dates that you need to be aware of. Check if you need to bring any sheets and towels with you or purchase it when you're on site. Right, to do before you go. If you're a direct student, please be sure to pay your program fee 30 days before the start date. Check data plan with phone provider for international plans, or something I mentioned earlier. You could use SIM card, local SIM card, an international plan, depending on what your provider offers, or you could rent a phone, or you could rent a burner phone. There's a couple different options. Make sure you know the date and location of host site orientation should be available in your acceptance package or your ISEP pre-departure information. Write down address of where you're going and carry it in your carry-on, so you know exactly where you're going to be going as soon as you arrive in Brazil. Make electronic, I've already mentioned this, but make copies of any important documents and upload them to a Google Drive or other online storage system in case that you lose those documents while you're on site, and then you can access them again when you're there. Keeping in touch. Determine before you leave how you plan to stay in touch with your family and friends back home. We have some tips for staying in touch. Remember to contact family upon your safe arrival. You may want to let them know if you're not going to have Wi-Fi access or be able to call them right away. Just let them know that before you leave, that it may be a few hours before they hear back from you. But please, once you have Wi-Fi or you're able to access your phone, please let them know that you have arrived safe and you are doing well. Okay, you can connect with ISEP students and share your story. You can become a digital ambassador. You can always reach out to us for how to become a digital ambassador. We love to have students do, Instagram takeovers, for example, and they can post on our ISEP page their experience abroad on their ISEP program. Here is our Twitter handle and our Instagram handle. Please feel free to follow us and use hashtag ISEP Study Abroad when you're sharing photos or videos or different things like that to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. All right, I think that's about it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or to the host coordinator if you have specific questions about the program or campus. And I hope you all have a wonderful time in Brazil.